What's going on, everyone, and welcome in to another episode of the Bleav in Jets podcast. I am your host, DTereman. Today, we will be discussing the full details of the two mega blockbuster trades the New York Jets facilitated at the trade deadline. Those would be, of course, sending Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams to new teams. Chronologically, the first trade that came down was Sauce Gardner being traded to the Indianapolis Colts for 2 first-round picks and wide receiver Adonai Mitchell. Those first-round picks come in 2026 and 2027, and the Jets do not send any draft compensation back. So it is 2 first-rounders and Adonai Mitchell for Sauce Gardner. First and foremost, this is a great haul for a non-quarterback. If you think about the Jamal Adams trade from a few years prior, 2 firsts, a third, and a player for Jamal Adams and a fourth. This is in that exact same mold. 2 first-rounders for a defensive back and a player to boot. So obviously the Jets save money in the long term with Sauce Gardner, even though he just signed the deal. A lot of this was bonus money that was not yet on the cap for the New York Jets, but they do incur a $19 million dead cap hit over the next 2 seasons. I Bleav that's 8 this year in 2026 and then 11 next year in 2027. So a bit of a high dead cap for Sauce Gardner, but the overall cap space that the Jets have make this manageable. Now, this was not a move because Sauce Gardner wanted to leave like I had speculated in my earlier videos. This was a trade that he was alerted about at 12:15 this afternoon per multiple reports, and was one that was not on anybody's radar until about yesterday afternoon when Ian Rappaport said there were some rumblings that the Jets were looking for some Godfather offers, as he claimed it, for some of their players. Clearly, they got it in Sauce Gardner with 2 first-rounders and a young ascending player potentially for their offense. A.D. Mitchell was the 52nd overall pick in the 2024 NFL draft, notably the wide receiver that Joe Douglas was giddy about that the Colts selected, which made it easier for them to trade up for their wide receiver of choice, Malachi Corley. Obviously, we know Malachi Corley is no longer on this Jets team, but now with A.D. Mitchell entering the fold, over the back 9 of this game, of this season, can A.D. Mitchell show you that he is wide receiver 3 or even potentially wide receiver 2 moving forward opposite Garrett Wilson? So that is the offensive spin on this. Perhaps A.D. Mitchell can become something for this offense where the years left on his deal make it worth it in the short term and the long term, and also will help provide a stable environment or more stable environment for whatever incoming quarterback joins this Jets team. Defensively, from a personnel perspective, the Jets started rookie A.Z. Thomas, 3rd rounder from Florida State, in week 8 against the Cincinnati Bengals. And he did moderately well to pretty well for most of that game. He was beat for a 44-yard touchdown by T. Higgins, but he did have a near interception and played pretty well outside of that one specific play in Sauce Gardner's absence as he was recovering from his concussion. So moving forward, you have Brandon Stevens, their first-year free agent, signed on a 3-year deal. You have A.Z. Thomas opposite him on the boundary, who is in the first year of his rookie deal, obviously. And then you have Jarvis Brownlee Jr., who you traded for a few weeks ago from the Tennessee Titans. And now this cornerback room looks completely different than you had going into the season. And I thought the cornerback room was one of the strongest assets of the Jets. And maybe in a way you can still say it is, considering you were able to get a pick swap for Michael Carter II as well as John Mechie. And then you got 2 first-rounders in A.D. Mitchell for Sauce Gardner, all while using a late-round pick swap to acquire Jarvis Brownlee. So the Jets have done some, budgeting to make their cornerback room what it is now, but there is potential for it to be just as good as we've seen. Now, I don't think anybody is going to be as good as Sauce Gardner in a 1-to-1, but maybe the collective can look better than what we have seen throughout the first 8 games of this season. So that is the first trade that happened chronologically for the Jets. And then about an hour later, the New York Jets send longest tenured Jet and defensive tackle from the 2019 draft, third overall pick, Quinnen Williams, to the Dallas Cowboys in exchange for a 2026 second round pick, a 2027 first round pick, and defensive tackle Mazi Smith. Again, a Godfather offer, like Ian Rappaport said on NFL Insiders. The Jets basically got a Godfather offer when you consider these factors surrounding Quinnen Williams. Quinnen Williams had no more guaranteed money left on his deal. He was very unhappy with the organization, as it's been reported by SNY. Connor Hughes is saying that the relationship between Williams and the Jets deteriorated over the course of this past offseason and first 8 games of the season. He said it stems all the way back to, of course, when the New York Jets decided to part ways with quarterback Aaron Rodgers, and Quinnen went on social media and posted, going to be another rebuild year, I guess. It didn't get better for the Jets and Quinnen Williams in terms of their relationship. And Hughes reported that up to 3 times since AG has been hired, Quinnen has requested a trade. So the writing was clearly on the wall with Quinnen specifically that he was not going to return once his deal was done, and that if it wasn't going to be this offseason, it needed to be in the middle of this season. So getting a second round pick and then a first round pick in 2 seasons, as well as a player with contractual obligation like Mazi Smith, obviously at the same position, defensive tackle, you are taking a talent hit. Of course, Mazi Smith has not been, great throughout his career in Dallas. At one point, he was ranked as the worst defensive interior player by PFF's metrics. But there is the upside of Mazi Smith in this defense being in the same vein of Adonai Mitchell, where if they see something in this guy potentially for this remainder of the season and moving forward, they have something to work with in Mazi Smith. So it's a low-risk flyer, sort of like a throw-in, right, to these deals that Darren Muji is at least getting a player back that we can evaluate over the last 9 games of the season. So I don't totally hate the Quinnen Williams trade. I'm not a huge fan of Mazi Smith as the player, or really AD Mitchell as a player. So I don't have a ton of high expectations for those players specifically. But given everything that has gone on with Quinnen Williams, right, he has not seen more than 7 wins from this organization since being drafted. His best season technically was his rookie year under Adam Gase, where they went 7-9 and not 7-10. So a very unfortunate career with Quinnen Williams with the Jets. And as much as we all loved Quinnen Williams and probably wanted him to stay, it made sense that if he did not want to be here, to just move on and get the best return possible. So Muji getting a second this year and a first next year seems really good on the surface. Now, there is a bit of a clarification needed on that 2027 first round pick, because the Dallas Cowboys have their own first round pick as well as the Green Bay Packers first round picks as a result of the Micah Parsons trade that happened leading up to the start of this season. So the clarification is the Jets' first round pick will be the higher of the 2. So if the Cowboys end with the worst record, the Jets get the Cowboys pick. If the Packers end with the worst record, the Jets would get the Packers pick. So no matter what, they're getting the better of Dallas's 2 first round picks in 2027, which is a huge deal, so to speak, with this Darren Muji trade, because like we saw when they traded Jamal Adams, Seattle didn't have a good second year. They finished that first year strong, and then they ended up picking, I believe, 23 before the Jets traded up for AVT. But then the following season, Seattle fell off a cliff, and their natural pick was pick 10 for the Jets. So looking at it, could the Cowboys, excel over the back 9 and build into 2026? Sure, I think that's definitely possible. And as long as they have Dak Prescott healthy, they probably have a shot to be competitive. But is there a world where this season doesn't end well for the Cowboys and Jerry Jones decides to strip it all down. I think that's less likely considering Jerry Jones' age and his infatuation with trying to win now. I would assume that the Cowboys continue to go all in the future seasons as well. So it's no guarantee that the Cowboys pick is going to be a good pick, like in the top 10 or 12, but it's also not a lock that the Cowboys pick would be a playoff caliber pick where it's 24 or later in the first round. So the Cowboys' natural first round pick has more volatility, whereas I would assume the Packers over this year and next year are probably going to be the more established team than the Cowboys, and they're going to be fighting for a playoff spot with higher probability, right, than the Cowboys. So I think the Packers is looking at a late first rounder, and the Cowboys, you could be looking at a mid to early first rounder, depending on how their season goes. So I do like that little clarification in the trade by Darren Muji getting the earlier of the two picks, because that's just going to help with whatever they decide to do at quarterback. Which brings us to the next point, which is just how loaded up is this team to go get a future quarterback. Obviously, after these trades, the Jets are looking at a massive haul of picks. And according to NFL Fox, they put out a graphic that has the Jets with 2 first-round picks in 2026, the Jets and the Colts, which right now the Jets would be picking 3rd overall in 2026, and the Colts, because they do currently own the best record in football, have the 32nd pick in the first round. That both those picks will probably change. I think the Jets have a chance to remain in the top 5. I think that is the most likely course of action. Their natural pick will be in the top 5. And we have to hope that Daniel Jones and the Indianapolis Colts struggle down the back half of the season and perhaps have an early playoff exit to help get the Jets to closer to a top 20, top 24, 22 pick in the first round. So 2 first-round picks. They also own 2 second-round picks, which would be the Jets' natural pick, which is either 35 or 36 as of today, and then Dallas's second-round pick, which would be either 46 or 47 in the second round. So you're looking at 4 top 50 picks as of today. Obviously, if Dallas goes on a run, that second-round pick is going to be closer to 55 to 60. But if Dallas stays where they're at around pick 14 or 15 this season, that is going to be a great second-round pick for the Jets to do whatever they need to in terms of going up to get a quarterback. Then you couple in the fact that they have 3 first-round selections in the 2027 draft, the Jets' natural selection, the Cowboys or Packers selection, whichever is better, and then the Indianapolis Colts selection. So not to say we need to hate watch the Colts, Cowboys, and Packers, but it would benefit the Jets greatly if all 3 or 2 of those 3 teams don't find a ton of success in this year or next year. Obviously, Indianapolis is the main one. We have to hope that Daniel Jones regresses back to the New York version of Daniel Jones. And then we have to hope that one of Dallas or Green Bay end up struggling next season. So a lot rides on these picks in terms of other teams' positioning in the standings, but the Jets ultimately have 7 premium picks over the next 2 drafts in the first 2 rounds, and that's not even including their natural second-round pick in 2027. So really they have 8 premium assets over the next 2 years in terms of first or second round picks. And that means that they will be able to either control the draft or use all of this capital to go and acquire talent elsewhere. Now, obviously, I think the preferred path would be to take all your picks and load up on an offensive system and players that fit that system, whether it's Tanner Engstrand or somebody else by the time the season ends. My bet would be that it is Tanner Engstrand, but load up on players that you think fit their system. You're obviously in need of a quarterback. You need at least 1 to 2 wide receivers. You could probably use another tight end. Your offensive line is not solidified for the most part. You have your bookend tackles and Joe Tippmann under contract, but you have to make decisions on John Simpson, Josh Myers, and AVT. So you're probably looking at one or two interior offensive linemen in free agency or the draft. So they need to be very creative on how they use these picks. Obviously, they can go acquire their 2026 rookie quarterback with the third overall pick and then use the other assets to build around him, get him a wide receiver, an offensive lineman. That's all well and good. There is speculation, however, that the Jets might wait and load up their roster with non-quarterbacks in 2026 and look to attack the 2027 draft, where they now have 3 first-round selections. And not to do the whole next year's draft class is better, but there is a ton of speculation that a lot of the 2026 players with eligibility left may look to go back to school, namely a lot of these top quarterbacks, which will then push the talent into 2027. So I think the Jets did a good job in terms of spreading out the premium picks that they have and allow them to control the 2026 draft with their 4 top 50 picks. And it allows them to control the 2027 draft with 4 top 50 picks, 3 in the first round. So a lot can turn around quickly when you have all of these assets. Are they the right guys to make these picks? Obviously, that has yet to be proven one way or the other. I think a lot of the fan base right now is out on Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn, and today's dealings may not bring back a ton of positive reviews. Some are very encouraged by these reviews, but we don't know yet if these are the guys that can be trusted for the job. All we know is they most likely and probably are going to be the guys for the job to select all of the picks in 2026 and probably all of the picks in 2027 as well. So that is the speculation in terms of drafting a quarterback. There is, however, the question, do the Jets trade for a known veteran who is on a team that does not want to trade them or re-up their contracts, right? Whether it's a rookie looking for a second deal or a quarterback already on their second deal with a few years remaining and they don't want to re-up again. The 2 names that come to mind are Kyler Murray and Joe Burrow for me. Obviously, a lot would have to happen for those teams to probably move off of those quarterbacks. I think Kyler Murray would be the easier of the 2, considering that Arizona is, I believe, 3-5 right now on the season, and they could be in the quarterback market at the top of the draft in 2026. The Bengals, however, they've pivoted to Joe Flacco. Their offense is still humming. There's speculation that Joe Flacco is doing just as much or more than Joe Burrow has done for their offense. Not saying he is the better quarterback, but more leading to questions on if any quarterback could be the guy where they can just offload Joe Burrow and bring in a budget quarterback with the same offensive talent around him and get similar or more success. Obviously, Joe Burrow is a very talented quarterback. He took them to a Super Bowl early on in his career. He has struggled to stay healthy, and it does seem like the quarterback and offensive line chemistry when he is in the games is not as succinct, I guess, as with Joe Flacco and the offensive line, right? Joe Burrow takes a lot of sacks, a lot of pressure to sack rate, a lot higher than Joe Flacco's, because Joe Flacco diagnoses things at an elite level pre-snap, and he's able to throw with anticipation. Not saying Joe Burrow can't throw with anticipation, but there are things that lead people to believe that Joe Burrow might not be the best quarterback for that job. So they could also move on from Zach Taylor and blow the whole thing up and look to move a lot of parts, including Joe Burrow. So those would be the 2 veteran names to watch, Kyler Murray and Joe Burrow. I would be a little bit less optimistic. I should say a lot less optimistic if they go and get Kyler Murray, because a lot of maturity issues, right? The contract and the whole video game thing that happened early on with him in Arizona. Not sure I love all of the optics that come around Kyler Murray. He also struggles to stay healthy. He currently is not healthy. And although Jonathan Gannon has committed to him as being the quarterback when healthy over Jacoby Brissett, that does not guarantee Kyler Murray's job security with the Cardinals long term. So a lot to unpack in this one. I appreciate everybody tuning in. The Jets trade their star defensive players, Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams. They are now amassing a ton of premium capital for the next 2 drafts, it looks like. And we got to see what the future quarterback holds, whether it's a drafted rookie or a potential trade for a veteran. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Don't forget to rate and review the podcast. My name is DTereman, and I will talk to you soon.